Can you ever see us just moving right to a future state? Let's just jump to the very end. And could we not just get to that state where both the regulatory, the HTA, and the payer decisions are all just done at the exact same time? So why do we have to be sequential? Why can't we just jump to that state and just have one point of decision, and that's all that's made?
So you asked me to be provocative. Let me be so. When you say at the same time, that could mean many different things. Loosely speaking, it could mean, well, why don't we roll all these processes into one? What's wrong? We have a bunch of experts here and a bunch of experts there. Let's simply do one decision that allows a drug on the market and also decides on reimbursement. And I heard that sometimes being said in Europe, where we have these solidarity-based healthcare systems, 99% of the entire drug bill for these new products are paid anyway by third-party payers. So what's the point of having these two decision makers? That's one way of reading this, and I give you my first answer. It's provocative. I don't think this is a very good idea. And I am, like everybody else in this room, a future patient, or a current, I'm a future patient. Would I like to see that happen? No. Why? It is the easiest thing for a decision maker is to tell industry, oh, you need more data. Sorry, please come back in 2 years' time, do another study. We aren't there yet. There's a safety signal here. We're not clear about the comparative effect of that. So if you had one decision maker that always had in the back of their minds the budget impact, what would that mean for the benefit-risk assessment? It wouldn't bode well. And if I was in industry, I would be worried about that. So I would argue that the two decisions, looking at only the clinical side, the benefit-risk, versus should we pay for this and for who, should remain separated. We shouldn't contaminate one with the other. What I see happen in Europe now, and this is emerging as we speak really, is that these two decision makers act as checks and balances in an open society and watch over each other. So if the payer thinks that drug should never have come our way because we cannot afford it, then it's the obligation of the regulator to say, no, wait a minute, it may be too expensive, but this is a good product. We want it. And vice versa, if the regulator gets too permissive, then the payer would, and that happens now in Europe, tell them, wait a minute, what are you allowing on the market here? So keep that separated. When you say at the same time, I could also interpret this strictly in a temporal sense. And I would say absolutely. What we have, and you described that for Canada, we have exactly the same in the European member states. If the drug is allowed on the market on day 0, then the whole reimbursement assessment process starts again, and we're losing a year, half a year, whatever the case may be. That is white space. Nobody benefits from that. Could we bring those 2 points in time, the decision about licensing and the decision about reimbursement, closer together? Absolutely. This is a logistic issue. We're trying to shorten that white space by sharing information. We can talk about that later on. Yeah, but there is no good reason why it should be so far apart from each other. And one other thing that we could probably align, that is the evidence standards. I think it is only a measure of inefficiency of a healthcare environment if the regulator says the company should do this type of study and the HTA body or payer says, no, 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 you should do a different type of study, different endpoint because we're looking at that. Those two bodies should get their act together and say, okay, can we agree on what information we need, how much information is enough? That is not to say we roll the decisions into one, but the assessment basis, the clinical data, that can be aligned.